Okay. All right, Jack. How are we, my friend?
Very well, Ian. How are you, buddy?
Yeah, really good, really good. I'm sick of seeing your face at the moment, if I'm being honest with you. You've come out of nowhere. Now I can't get fucking rid of your face.
I know.
Sure, I'm going to wake up in the morning, you're going to be next to me. No, I'll quickly explain how we've got to know each other.
Please.
Obviously, obviously, we both seem like we're on similar journeys, and I think it might have been almost 2 months ago, a little bit less. Myself and my good friend Stephen, who's obviously been on the podcast a couple of times, we decided what we'll do is kind of put some of the stuff we're doing into group action, which was always kind of part of our vision. So we started a kind of first men's circle, and lo and behold, somehow you'd bumped into Stephen as fucking, it's almost like that divine timing. You've bumped into Stephen, kind of got to know each other. And I think he invited you along to our kind of men's group, and I know you run your own men's group. So I thought you showed up at ours really authentic, and just as we try to be, we believe in you. As I said, we were talking about before, uniting the tribes. And I felt, some people in this space maybe just want to do their own thing, but I don't think that really is that abundance mindset. So I really seen you show up and wanting to support. And obviously myself and Stephen have given that back and showed up to your kind of sessions. And I really like how you run your sessions as well and those workshops. So that's briefly how we know each other. So, thanks for coming along.
Thank you, man. Thank you.
Yeah, what I like to do is just to kind of hear a little bit about you, almost, see your story, from a wee nipper in Ireland or wherever it was you were born, and what's brought you here today and who you are. So, over to you, my friend. Tell us a little story.
Yeah, Jesus, that's a big question, big intro. I'll introduce myself, I guess. I was contemplating how would I answer this question, but I think, I was saying at the men's group at the weekend about the being and the doing and things like that, and how we attach our works to what we do. So coming here today, I was just like, you know what? I'm going to answer that question a little bit differently. I'm going to say, who am I really? And I was thinking, do you know what? I'm a son, I'm a brother, I'm a partner to a beautiful girlfriend, Saiv's her name. I'm a mental health advocate. I'm an advocate for healthy masculinity. And I'm a life coach as well, and I help men who feel stuck overcome self-doubt and just, help them to get clarity in their lives, empower them and all of that other good stuff. But I think, man, as I said at the weekend, the big part of my identity and who I am today has to do with like losing my mum when I was very young. So I'm sure at some point today we'll go more into that. But I'm trying to think what else.
Well, look. You've brought it up.
I
don't think we can skate past something like that. All right, if you're okay to delve into that. Of course. Okay. So, what age were you when you lost your mum?
Yeah. So I just turned 12.
Okay.
Yeah.
And how was your relationship with your mum prior? How was?
Like fantastic, man.
Yeah.
She was like the center of my universe, basically.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And how did she pass?
Breast cancer, man. September 2001 she was diagnosed, and July 2002 she passed away. So like 9 months.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. And what was, obviously you would have sat in that for a long time. What's your overarching kind of, view on that whole journey of you before, you after?
Yes, it's interesting you said that before and after, because that's something, I should have included in the intro there, that I'm also somebody who speaks about grief because it's kind of a taboo subject. And the irony is, of course, is that, we all face the same reality, but we all go around pretending as if it doesn't exist and it's not part of our reality. And it's a very real thing. And, if we're not prepared to talk about it, how can we ever move past it or heal? So I'm also a grief advocate, I guess you could say. But before and after, man, yeah. So at the weekend, just for the audience or the listeners to give some context, I just want to touch on the inner child thing. So at the weekend, at our men's group, we explored the idea of the inner child, and I was sharing with the group how yeah, my childhood was really beautiful. So I guess the point I'm trying to make here is that, like, yes, that was a very traumatic event, but I'm so grateful, man, for like the time I did get to know my mum and the love that I received and the values like that she instilled upon me and my family. So yeah, man, like, I mean, my who I am today is very much informed not only from the lessons and the teachings that my mother gave me, but this, what's the word? It's really important for me to honor her loss, and I think that is a very big part of what it is that I'm trying to do and what it is I'm trying to achieve. When it comes to healing or trauma or grief or whatever it may be. And I like to think that by doing this work, I'm honoring not only her memory, but like I said, the values that she instilled upon me and my family.
Oh, beautiful.
Yeah.
Beautiful. So, and you are, this
Thank
great
you.
work, that you're doing. You definitely are. At that time, as that 12-year-old,
Yeah.
when that event, awful event in your life happened, as you say, everything's there for our growth and everything else, and everything that we look at, we can ultimately kind of grow from. But your immediate response to that, how did, in the years after, how did it affect you?
Man, it was like just pure survival. Like, a lot of fear as well, it kind of like, losing a parent at that age, basically the world, your belief system of the world being a safe place. For me, the context for me was being in a loving family and a love nurture, receiving love and nurture, so security and safety. And then that gets taken away. Suddenly you're kind of confronted with this big bad world that as a 12-year-old, it's very hard to comprehend and wrap your head around. The safety is gone. What does this mean? So, man, I would have been very worried about my dad. I would have kind of I'm an only boy of 4 sisters, 2 older, 2 younger, and I basically took on this role of being the second man in the house. And I also took on, this was part of the survival, but I would have masked a lot of stuff because that to me is what felt like being resilient for the family meant, being that role, not putting the family first and putting like the things that I was suffering with aside so that I could just get through all of that. Did that come at a cost? Now that I'm, I don't know, what's it? I'm 34, so 22 years later, I'm sure it probably did. I spent a large part of my 20s wearing a mask, and that's a big part of the work that I do with men, helping men to see that actually authenticity lies at the other side of taking the mask off. But for me, the mask actually served a purpose, at that time.
Yeah, I think it's interesting to say that because I think yourself touched on that, or somebody touched on masks that weekend. Why do you think that is? I think I asked the question, how many people do we think wear a mask? Whether it be men, women, doesn't really matter. But from a men's perspective, we were having a conversation. I think someone said at least probably 90% of the people out there are just simply wearing a mask. Why do you think that is?
Really good question. I can only talk to my own experience, I guess, but I think that, we wear masks so that we don't feel exposed. So I would say a lot of it comes back to like our child, moments in our childhood when we experience shame. And we learnt that the thing that we were doing that kind of we got criticized or ridiculed or belittled or judged over, we learnt that it wasn't safe for us to act that way. So therefore we kind of go into ourselves and we feel shame and judgment, as well as self-criticism, even self-hatred for some people. And then we learn that it's not safe for us to be ourselves anymore. And I guess, again, that serves a purpose in that moment, for those kids. But it's, you speak about vulnerability, man, and it's massive, it's huge. It's vulnerability means you can't wear a mask and be vulnerable at the same time. It's just not possible. So it's learning that it's safe for you to be who you are, and it's not just safe. Actually, it's critical, to your well-being and to your core, who you are, everything that you can say that, what, not everyone's going to fucking like me, not everyone's going to understand me, but fuck it, I am who I am, you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's a really good analogy, and because if you don't drop the mask, you 100% nobody's going to know you, because they don't know you, and I think, I always use that vulnerability as a superpower, but you're right, it's basically, I always say vulnerability is truth. The mask isn't fucking truth. Mm-hmm. So I'm seeing an image of just, everybody in a fucking circle with their masks up like that, and no one behind is showing their true self. So no one fucking knows each other. Yeah. It's all bullshit. And I suppose it's like, when you're younger and you maybe more your authentic self, and, my best friends, and you maybe best friends because maybe they knew you at the get-go. You can't hide with your mask. With your best friend when you're younger. Why could I develop a relationship with somebody when I was younger? Because you didn't have a fucking mask. Do you know what I mean? That's why it's more deep-rooted. Yeah. And that's why if you just drop the mask, you can still form fucking great bonds with people. It's not just through time and age when I was a kid. We've grown. We're now different people.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Than there. And, you might not actually get it. You have that truth and authenticity and vulnerability because they know you. You can't hide with a fucking mask. But if you then carry this mask with you all the way along, that's the only person who knows you. And that person might not be the right fit for you anymore.
Yes.
Because you've evolved. And it's just like we were talking on the way here. You and I have turned up, we've met each other, we've spoken, there's no mask. So at least you know me and I know you. You might think I'm a dickhead, but at least you know. At least you know who I am. Do you know what I mean? There's no mask here. And I think that's a really, really good point for people to sit with. Yeah. What's the point of the mask? It's almost like a defense mechanism for your inner child, maybe, It's
of course.
It's just like, but growth, we need to step into this and we need to realize, obviously, there's lots of ways to do it, but it's not as easy as just saying, hello, I'm here. You know what I mean? It depends on how traumatized you've been or how, that little child, what affects him. But I think the goal is to be real, right?
Yes. Just to clarify, I don't think you're a dickhead either. So what we spoke about there, which you're after kind of complimenting or echoing, is that it's the function or the purpose of the mask. But there's another angle too, when you ask the question, why do we wear them? Society also plays its part. It perpetuates this suffering for men in particular, and I think that's what this podcast is predominantly for men, but ladies, you're welcome too. Society, the conditioning placed upon us, and the programming, that it's big boys don't cry. It's weak to talk about your feelings. It's such a distortion of the truth. It's mind blowing that we have men going around who can't express themselves, acting as role models of what it means to be a man, but they don't actually have the courage. Sorry, I want to be clear. I'm not here to divide. That's not really what I want to do, and I don't want to come across as placing judgment either on these men, because that's part of what we're trying to do. We're trying to bring these men and show them the way forward. But in saying that, there are toxic men out there, man. And there are guys who are saying, don't be a little bitch, don't be a pussy, you know? And it's that sort of rhetoric that reflects what society is saying as a whole, you know? It's the societal conditioning that says that it makes it unsafe for men to express themselves, you know? You said it at the weekend, the stats speak for themselves, man. We don't need to go into the stats, but
everybody knows.
Yeah, and that's I can't see that it's not fucking. That's part of the problem.
No, and you make a really, really good point, because I think we're all bespoke. Everybody's slightly different, right? You know, and you know, when you talk around people saying, "Oh, don't be a little bitch," about something like that. Now, our comment might work if you're playing football and somebody needs to work harder. Come on, you lazy fuck, get your ass into gear. But if someone's got some deep-rooted traumas and they're just saying, you know, suck it up. Mm-hmm. Well, already their inner child's completely screwed up. They're probably running around the head completely thinking. You say that, they're going to block the throat. They can't release any emotion, any energy. It just gets worse. Now, that only ends up in a really bad place.
Yes.
It's either the person's going to lash out or fucking what's going to go on, or they're going to suffer from serious mental health issues. So there's never one size fits all.
Yes.
And I hope things are starting to change. You know, I think I'm starting to feel a bit of a change. I think people are realising that fucking true courage is standing there in front of, as you did on Saturday, and saying, I'm prepared to fucking talk. Here I am. You know what I mean? It's like, okay, fuck you know. We were talking about this, almost that little warrior comes through, right?
Yeah.
And we all have that in us. And it feels good. Okay, yeah, I am. That's more courageous. I go to what David Taggart said. I've said it before in the podcast. He's fought on the front lines. And he found it tougher and more courageous to be vulnerable than he did fighting on the front lines. Because of how society has put this kind of cap on that. Well, I think, as I say, I think it's changing.
Yeah.
I think it's changing.
Yeah, it's funny. While you were sharing there, like I saw Goggins in Dublin 2 years ago, and everyone looks to Goggins as this guy who can, you know, his ability for endurance and overcoming, you know, crazy mental hurdles. But actually, he was asked about shame, and you know, like he is the embodiment of vulnerability. He goes up there and says, my father beat me. I was treated really poorly growing up. Like, he suffered most of his life through shame, the shame that he experienced through his childhood. But we don't celebrate that part of Goggins. They celebrate the part of Goggins that is out achieving these milestones. But he could never have become that person if he didn't lean into his vulnerability and say, he says that, this is me, you know? And I just find it so interesting that people, they don't see that side of Goggins or anyone that we admire, you know, when it comes to people on a stage sharing something traumatic. We look at that person and we feel empowered, we feel inspired. We feel inspired by them because they overcame, a lot of it is inner, you know, shame or adversity, and we don't celebrate enough the authenticity and the vulnerability that those people exhibit when they do those things.
It's a good point you make there, because I went to Chris Williamson was over here in I don't know when it was, September, October or something, and I went to watch one of his live talks. And I'm in there and I'm hearing all the standard stuff, if I'm being honest, you know, that I would talk or you were talking. I'm like, this is great. You know, I was enjoying it. There was a lot of stuff going on. But he kind of paused and he went, now I'm going to be really real. And he spent about 5 to 10 minutes talking about how he's felt this year in his most successful period of his life is the lowest he's felt. He felt every element of anxiety, imposter syndromes, fuck this, fuck, you know, all of this stuff's coming at him, financially best, all of this stuff. And it's the lowest he's felt. And I felt this, I felt this collective consciousness zoom in. Zoom. And it was almost like, this is the collective healing. And it was just like there was, you know, a beautiful guy, one of the guys in, I think it was in your kind of men's circle on Sunday, and he spoke about, you know, I think he even spoke to me, which, you know, I was like, and he said, when you spoke, I said, I saw you as this character, And then when you spoke about the shit that you've gone through and you're vulnerable and share, and I was like, oh, great, it's not just me. And it's that thing, I think, it is like collective healing. And I've said it many times, clearly people need counsellors, clearly people need things for different stuff, right? But I also think there's so much value in just sharing with each other and kind of going, I've been there too, I get this fucking thing. Because someone goes, it's not all that bad, right? And then you can start working with each other. Well, I tried this, I tried that. And then you can start, and I think that in itself is a massive percentage lift on where, if you're at 10%, if zero is, real risk stuff and you're sitting at 10%, just sharing with somebody, you might go, 40%, a bit of a foundation in your kind of mental health, so to speak, that you can then move forward. I genuinely believe that.
Yeah, totally, man. Yeah. Like we were talking about purpose on the way over here, and this isn't so much to do with purpose. Well, no, it is actually to do with purpose. Like when I was reflecting on the men's group and how it's been going and what you just touched on there, men coming, and it's the same at your men's group, the things that are happening, man, like the connections that, I don't know, I can only speak for myself, but man, they're moving me to my core, like, and it's because guys are showing up for themselves, like we said, taking the masks off. They're practicing vulnerability, and the connections that are happening because of that, man. I'm struggling to find the words to describe. I don't know about you, man, but like I'm feeling like my mental health has significantly improved since I've started doing this. Like, and my sense of well-being, my sense of fulfillment. And I think it all comes back to what you're saying, which is that like, oh, I'm not the only one. And now I'm actually in a space where men are empowering me to actually say, these are my shortcomings, these are my warts and all. And I'm actually still standing. I'm not just standing. I actually feel stronger now.
Yeah.
And that the irony, of course, is that getting back to that conditioning and what society says. Society puts us in boxes and we become suppressed, man. And, we turn to various different ways of coping and so on and so forth. But like, there's an irony in that, right? It's almost paradoxical that, it actually has the opposite effect. And I guess now is a good time for a call to action. Whoever's listening to this that may need to join a men's group, come and join,
I couldn't agree more. It's definitely helped me. And apart from, we talk around in ours, the 5 pillars of fulfillment, looking over than the social connections element. Now I'm catching up with groups of men and a couple of times of the weekend, and we're shooting the shit for about 2 or 3 hours. We're having a dip, we're having a walk, we're having a chat. All of a sudden, my social connections juice has gone, boom, connecting to different people. And I'm not connecting to a fucking mask. I'm not connecting to someone and go, I think they're talking shit, because I'm seeing the very core of that person. There's no fluff, and I go, I like this. I know this person's talking real, because we're sharing proper shit. You can't, as you say, you can't wear a mask and share proper shit. The truth can only come without a mask. So I think it's, to your point, I think the more of this, and I feel like I've got it within the work I'm doing. I really want to give men's circles almost a cookie cutter approach of how they can work. And the app that we're developing is going to enable people to almost be in a collective. So, Jack's over there, this is your rating. You can create your own men's circle. The app tells you where everybody is. And now Jack's sitting there and you do your weekly check-in. Ian hasn't turned up to the men's group for 2 weeks, but he's done his check-in. The group can see he's scoring low. Hey, Ian, are you okay, brother? You know what I mean? Because what happens when people go really low, sometimes they disconnect more. And you know what I mean? They go disconnect. So I think, as you say, these men's circles, they're fucking powerful. And it's not rocket science what we're doing, is it?
True, yeah.
It's not rocket science. We're turning up. We're sharing some shit. It's a collective releasing of, fuck, not just me. And then we talk through some scenarios. We catch up, everything, and it's so cathartic. It's helping a lot of people. And, even that guy, which really made me emotional on the day, that guy who turned up and he says, just because I heard you 4 guys talking on a podcast, I was about to commit suicide. He come all the way from Melbourne for a men's circle. And he looked me in the eye and he said, that podcast you do with those 4 guys, it resonated with that much. It stopped me from fucking putting my head around the noose. I was like, you fucking kidding me? My work here is done. I was like, I was so thankful for him for sharing. But that's so powerful. So can you imagine the more people just do these little men's groups? How many people are that close? Because what I always think is, you know, I've done, we'll get to your rating in a minute. I've done a lot of these kind of, you know, we do this simple rating out of 20 in the areas, health and fitness, internal work, love and relationships, social connections, work and life flow. And there's a lot of people who say to me, yeah, I was low. I was really fucking low. I wasn't suicidal. Though. Like, okay, you know, okay. How close were you? You don't know. I don't know how close I've been to in the past. I've been fucking low. When I rated myself, I wasn't too dissimilar to the score that we'll discuss with you now. I remember looking out on Coogee Beach. Beautiful. Everything's fucking beautiful. Great job. Paid well. And I'm looking going, is this it? Is this fucking it? It was vanilla land. It was death by 1,000 cuts for me. You know, it wasn't that big fucking painful moment. But I was just getting chipped away at. Where was my joy? I had no peace.
Yes.
And I think, you know, I think the biggest one, I'm doing I wrote down, I told you, writing down these little bits of content now because I'm starting to realise that you can actually add real value in little snippets of content that might help people. And I come up with this thing about, I saw something around the worst prison you can be is a life without peace. And, you know, and I draw this analogy of not having peace at home, getting in your car, you're in your prison of your own mind, it's following you. You go to work, you fucking, but it's all following you. You go back home, you've got no peace. You go to the weekend, you've got no peace. So you're walking around and going, there's absolutely, I can just imagine this picture of a person with a prison on his head. There's absolutely no peace. And you're just battling and you're battling and you're battling. And people don't realise sometimes how close they were. Because how would you? I'm not sure it's like, oh, you know, there's a percentage to all. You don't know.
Yeah.
You know, and I think it's really important that things like these men's groups, I think, push people away from those risk steps.
There's a couple of things I want to touch on there. The first one, like, because myself and you kind of, we haven't actually spoke about it, but I feel that we have connected on a point that you just touched on, which is that, like, while you were sharing there about looking out onto the beach and you know, feeling stuck and like those kind of negative thoughts, I felt like saying, and I bet you felt like you shouldn't be feeling that way. Yeah, and I know what that feels like, and I think it's really important to note that, like, nobody is actually immune, for want of a better word, to mental health struggles. You know, it doesn't really matter what, you know, who you are or what you have or what you do. Like, people, and it's, you know, like, just to slightly expand on that, like, it's because we can't see mental health. You know, if somebody broke their leg or broke their ankle, they'll have a cast and you can empathize and sympathize with that person. But because mental health struggles happen somewhere we can't see, you know, a lot of the time you won't know that somebody's suffering or struggling. So I just wanted to make that point that nobody's immune to it. The other thing I want to go back on something, because I wanted to say this is really important, because you skimmed over it, and I think it's really important to go back. That guy that came and shared that thing at the men's group, man, I know I don't know you that long, man, but I do consider you a friend already. I want you to. I watched you as you received that news, as that guy shared, and I could see, like, the effect it had on you, man. And not just on you, the guy obviously coming and sharing, and his story was quite raw and vulnerable, and took serious cojones for him to share what he shared. But what I would like to say to you, man, is I really want you to know I'm proud of you for that. Like, really, really proud of you. And yeah, not to skim over it, because it's you're after the work you're doing, man, and the passion you have. Like, not only you're helping all those, man, I feel so grateful to know you, man. Genuine, just so you know. So I wanted to come back to that and honour you and congratulate you. It's massive.
Well, brother, thank you very much. It means a lot. I was trying to run past that because it does get me emotional, as you can see. I'm tearing up now. It was such a beautiful moment, and the fact you came and shared that with me. But I really appreciate what you're saying. It means a lot. But for me, it's more power to these people who've got the courage to stand up and share those vulnerable stories. And as you were talking there previous, I was thinking about, like, you can't see it, and that's why vulnerability is the key. Because vulnerability means, it's like I was saying, a business, right? And I believe the same within a business. Vulnerability is the truth. Now, what happens in most businesses, rightly or wrongly, there's a lot of fear. Because, you're getting paid X, you got a boss, the boss might be an asshole or some other kind of scenario, and you're operating in here. And one example could be you've been operating a role for a year and you've fucked up a few things and you've identified it, and then you flag it up and go, oh, I'm really sorry, I fucked this up. And the boss fucking gives you down the banks. You've been doing this for a fucking year. What the fuck? Rather than saying, thank you for doing that, let's learn our lesson, not do that again. But I need to hear more of that, so then I can get a direct line of sight to where the problems are, then we can improve the business. That's the thing that makes logical sense. Now, what happens is they bark at them, then they cower behind the pulpit, and they're not going to speak up again. So a business can fall over through that. That's what culture's about. That's what great culture is. When you create great culture, in behind great culture is truth, vulnerability, because everybody can see where we need to operate. And that's why people talk culture, but they don't know why, because it delivers profitability, productivity, and everybody's singing off the same hymn sheet a lot of the time. And it's the same within the human existence, because what you just spoke to is the mask. So no one can fucking see what's going on. As soon as you reduce the mask and you're prepared to share, that creates a bond and a culture and a fucking thing between a collection of people, and we can help each other, and it releases the shit. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally. And I would like to add something, because, and every man will experience this as they lean more and more into their authenticity. It's very hurtful, man, when we show the courage to be vulnerable and it's rejected. Or, you spoke about active listening at the weekend. Somebody doesn't hold the space. So I think it's really important. We're talking quite a lot about vulnerability, and there may be a guy listening in and he may decide, all right, I'm going to go and I'm going to open my heart to someone, who he may think is a confidant. And that person may or may not have it's actually likely, I would say, that if you're early into it and you're not actively surrounding yourself, or you haven't found your tribe yet, because I experienced that, man, and that kind of points to the bigger problem at play here for men, because when we do that and we experience rejection again, it brings us right back to our childhood when we felt unsafe to be ourselves or express ourselves. So, yeah, I just want to know, guys, that if that happens, if you've experienced that and you know what that feels like, and every man does know what it feels like, that the person who you shared with, their inability to hold space, it's not a reflection of you as a person. You know what I mean? And I guess as well, to be mindful of who it is that you actually practice vulnerability with. I think I just wanted to add those two things in.
Fucking, what a great point. What a great point. And it's the same, let's say, using that analogy in business, you share stuff and you get clipped. It could be the same in relationships, whether that's with a friend and it can happen in relationships. There was a guy who I currently coach, and exactly what you're describing happened to him. Exactly. With his missus. Right. Where he teared up about something, shown vulnerability. It was joy for, I think, a family member. And it brought something back to him, and he shared why he was emotional. And, it was a joyous emotion, but crying and stuff. And basically, his partner just didn't get it and took the piss. Actually, joked about it and joked about it to others. Now, I'm working with this guy, so I'm trying to, I can see him shoot back. You can almost it's 5 steps forward, 10 steps back. So I'm like, okay, right, come back.
Yeah.
Come back. We need
That's a difficult one.
Okay, right. We need to talk to this. But you make a really good point. And as I said at the beginning, there's no judgment about anybody because I believe we are, as I always say, we are all a ball of love. We've all been programmed by a load of shit, society, this, that, parents, that, fucking traumas, fucking whatever. So it's not their fault.
Yeah.
But what we need to do is when we're going through that, I think you made a point there, try and strategically choose who you're going to speak to. You'll probably have a gauge of who's going to be warm to this and not. Mm-hmm. And it's also part of your journey. You know, if you've got somebody around you, and I talk about those energy boosters or energy vampires.
Yes.
You know, if you speak to somebody and they just don't give a shit, and there's, you know, you get the opposite, that's probably somebody, that's somebody you want to maybe set some boundaries around. And you might want to start looking. I always say, just do a little exercise. If there's 10 people in your world, look at them, write them down on a piece of paper, because I always say if you can see it, you can manage it.
Yeah.
Who energy boosts me? Who's a supporter? Who's there for me? And who isn't? You know? Who's an energy vampire? Fuck, I need to spend more time with these. These are going to give me a boost of energy. Just because somebody's in your life, and that can be family or anything, you're not here just to suffer. You're here to grow. And I think sometimes there's boundaries. Sometimes people need to be cut, and you need to focus on the people who give you energy. Yeah. Because a lot of the time, if you're trying to work on yourself, but you're effectively saying, oh, yeah, but they're okay, and then you end up trying to fix other people all of the time, you're sucking the energy from yourself to give to others who may be not ready, because it's always free will, and you get stuck in this fucking loop. But you've got all these fucking energy boosters over here going, I'm here. You know what I mean? And that's, I think, taken away from your own growth. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, that's very common, that last bit that you spoke about. And again, there's a lesson there, which is it's just, unfortunately, we have to, you know, make mistakes and suffer a little bit until we actually find our truth and who we are, and you know, act from a place of integrity. But while you were sharing that, man, I wanted to share a little story that was making me laugh. Years ago, when the whole vulnerability thing clicked for me, there was a friend in my life, and in hindsight, this was so naive of me, you know, and I was basically hanging out with this guy, and I realized that everything was really superficial. There was no depth. And I kind of approached the conversation saying, hey man, this vulnerability, like, I was just like, hey man, yeah, look, so I've realized that, like, I can't really not be around people who aren't prepared to be vulnerable. And he didn't have a clue what I meant by vulnerability. And I said it, I remember saying it to my older sister, who is like a really positive influence and mentor and everything in my life. And she was like, Jack, you know, it was just so funny. She was just like, he probably does, he wouldn't know what the word itself means. But yeah, in hindsight, to be honest, I don't actually have a friendship with that person. Like, that was an example of a person I was confiding in, and, you know, complete energy vampire, and not having my best interests at heart or any of that. But there I was. And that's the thing as well. That speaks to another thing men struggle with, because we need connection. And sometimes it's so painful, man, when you're trying to, you know, for me personally, I'm a very deep thinker, right? And for a long time, I felt very misunderstood, and that I didn't really, people didn't really get the way my outlook and stuff. Now, this was compounded by the fact that I was living in a small village in rural Ireland, but I kind of had to fit in. So I kind of compromised myself. So connections became very difficult. You know, authentic connections became very difficult for me. And, you know, especially when you're trying to connect with somebody again and you're being vulnerable and it's just not being reciprocated, and that person is taking the piss out of you, suddenly you think there must be something wrong with me, like, you know? What is it about me? I think too deep, man. You know, it turns in on we turn in on ourselves, and that again is another fundamental part of the journey that all men, you know, who are walking on this path and going into their personal growth, they're going to be faced with these challenges, you know. Unfortunately, it sucks, but I think it's, you know, unless they're just very fortunate people and have really good people around them, you know.
100%. And other people might, so you drop your mask, someone else go, oh, fucking they did drop the mask, and you can get that. And like, even, I see even to a small extent in the circles, because people start and they're a bit, there's a little bit to hide behind a little bit, and then someone says, and then eventually by the end it's like, oh, fuck, and everybody's out. No, but it's a very good point you make. But I do believe there's simple kind of tricks and methodologies that you can use during that process. You know what I mean? And there's simple high-level stuff. And again, a friend of mine always says, men are very meat and potatoes. There's kind of simple tricks that you can use that don't have to go too deep, that's going to help you move forward. And that's why I talk about energy vampires and energy boosters. It's easy, it makes sense. Quick exercise, who's doing it? Okay, have those conversations. If they're not prepared to move with you, you're going to have to do something there. Just go to where you know you can get some value. So we've spoken about authenticity and stuff there, and you did talk around dropping the masks. Let's have a look at, you know, your lowest kind of time out of a possible score of 20 in all of the 5 key pillars of fulfillment. You were at 3. Fantastic now that you're at 18. Which, and again, I can see, you know, that you're holding yourself accountable. You're doing a lot of the inner work. I know that's kind of what you do. You've got a beautiful relationship. Your social connections is growing. All of the areas, you know, from where they were. When you did that questionnaire, did it make you think, okay, you know, did it make you any aha moments kind of going, okay, that makes fucking sense. I can really see what I wasn't doing for myself.
Oh, God. Yeah, it was a really interesting exercise, and I see a lot of value in it. So good job, firstly. I'm buying myself time here. Man, it just, brought me back to various different phases. Like, you know, I speak about my grief. My grief actually helped me on my journey, because I had to. You can't face grief and not be true to yourself, you know? So doing the work on my grief helped me be connected to my authenticity. But it also kind of, I don't know, is affirmed the right word to use, but it showed me something that gave me a sense of hope, you know? So that has been a really big part of it. So basically, man, the personal growth journey for me was anxiety coupled with my grief. I was very anxious. Very, very anxious, man, and realized that, I kind of need, there's stuff that I've been neglecting here. The anxiety was really a shit time for me. I realized that I was anxious, and instead of showing myself compassion, I was just like, how long has this been kind of dictating my life? But yeah, man, I think like, so a big part of it as well was my role within the family business. You know, like I pretty much, I've said this a good few times, but like since I was a young fella, like in school and stuff, being asked what you want to do when you're older, I was always told that I would go into the family business. And yeah, man, just like, you know, in my late teenage years, I spent 2 years in a boarding school and then an additional year in a grind school, and it was all like structure, day planned out for you. And I really enjoyed those environments, and I excelled in those environments. Then I went to college, and you know, I didn't have typically back home in Ireland, the mother is the person who's kind of guiding the children on, you know, their career paths or whatever. And this, I'm not saying this as a criticism to my dad. My father is a brilliant man, and we have a great relationship and everything else. But I went to college, man, and I just got lost pretty much, and I just tried to find my way, and I spent quite a long time. I was a lost seeker, man, for like most of my early 20s, and to navigate all of that, I was living a life that I believed was expected of me as I wasn't Jack Costello, who you know today. First and foremost, this is who I am today, warts and all, you know. But back then, I was Tim Costello's son, who, you know, I was Jack Costello, Tim's son, who is heir to the throne, or, you know, works in the family business. So I had to and that caused me so much inner turmoil. You know, I was constantly comparing myself to this version of who it was that I believed I was supposed to be. I constantly chased my father's approval and validation because this is who I'm supposed to be. So I have to arrive somewhere. And again, it's interesting because the not being enough, the whole thing around not being enough, I attach my worth to that identity and the outcomes of that identity. And I had this vision of arriving to the top, and you know, it was all an illusion. And when I left the company a few years ago, like, it was fairly abrupt and I didn't have much of a plan. So that was a very challenging time. And to be honest, without my partner, Sive, I do not think I would have, I don't know who I would be today if I didn't meet her. She's really my rock. And shout out to my beautiful girlfriend if she's listening in. Just to give me brownie points now. But yeah, it was a journey, man. I definitely went on the lost seekers journey, you know.
Yeah, and I think it sounds like it got pretty low for you. And you know, thanks for sharing and being real there. And going back to what you said before, if it was more out there, if there was more men's circles, if there was more kind of, you know, society hasn't pushed one narrative and another narrative come through and it's okay to share. In those tough times, I don't think it'd be so tough because you've got an outlet. You know, you think, what do you believe the same?
I keep sharing little personal anecdotes that we've shared, but man, basically, like, I look at you, I was saying in the car over here that, you know, what's happening, what I can feel happening between us. And you're basically, man, you're a role model. And I've been looking for role models like yourself for a long time. So I think that's what it's about, that there's a lack of role models out there. And I think that's what we're trying to do, right? We're trying to be role models to say to men that it's okay to be true to yourself, it's okay to be vulnerable, it's okay to let go of the mask, it's okay to not be okay. And the evidence of that, man, is that a guy came from Melbourne, you know, like, so, but yeah, like, I lacked that, man. Yeah, I lacked that, but it wasn't, look, I'm not pointing the finger, it was all internal too, you know. My internal world was in turmoil, I was confused, I was lost, wasn't being true to myself. Like many guys who go through all that, I had various different ways of coping with that, which didn't help. But yeah, I guess, you know, I think you were saying at the weekend, you kind of, would you change it? Would you, you know? But yeah.
No, it's a really good point, because I'm looking at, you know, my background, and I think I didn't really have that mentor myself. And I had kind of low spots around me, didn't really find I had those people I could reach to, who I could really share. I remember reaching out to one guy, right, who apparently is, you know, on the spiritual journey and stuff like that. He introduced me to a couple of things, actually. And I remember reaching out to him when I was going through a bit of a breakup, and it was, and I felt a bit, and I thought, fuck, I need to talk to someone. I need to talk to a guy, because I'm as resilient as they come, you know, battle hardened through work, this, that, and the other, you know, from Liverpool, you know, I've seen a lot.
Yeah.
And I can take a lot, you know what I mean? I can keep going, like, you know, one of those things that I think I'll never fucking stop, you know what I mean? There's a guy, I think it's, there's this comedian who, it always makes me laugh because he misses jokes and says, that's like fucking you. There's this guy, I think William Montgomery's on the, I don't know if you watch it, Kill Tony show, and he comes in and he goes, I ain't never going to stop. I mean, Mr. takes the piss. He said, it's like you, you're like a fucking Duracell bunny. But I had a moment where I was thinking, this doesn't feel good, and I'd love to be able to share with somebody. And I didn't necessarily think I had the right people around me, or maybe I hadn't spoken to certain people. I've got really close friends from, I got a really good friend from back home, Carl. I've known him since I was a kid. He knows me, no matter what masks I've wore over the time, he knows deep down who I am. And I don't really wear any masks anymore. But I remember reaching out to some guy over here, and I said, hey, mate, can I have a chat? It was blanked, the first one. Bear in mind, I'd given support myself through difficult times.
Yeah.
And he blanked, and he blanked. And then the third one, he messaged me back. He says, I'm actually going through a bit of a time myself at the moment. I haven't got any energy to give, so I'm dealing with my own stuff. Okay, all right. And I took that, but I was thinking, because I've been in spots when I've been down, and if a guy reaches out to me, I'm going all in. If you come to me, I'm in. I want to help. And I understand that, but I wasn't, asking for the world. And I actually get energized when I help others. If somebody wants to be helped, I love it. I'll work all day. You take a step with me, I'll fucking walk 100 miles with you. And that really showed me something. And that was one of those things. Even doing that, I was being vulnerable. Then I went, I ran back in and went, fuck this, I'll deal with it myself. You know what I mean? I went back into me shell. So I look at it and think, I'm trying to be the person. I was speaking to a friend of mine who does coaching this way as well. He does online coaching, Sean, and I believe in a similar way, trying to be the person that I would have listened to when I was younger. Because I said it before, I didn't listen to my dad and stuff. Didn't listen to my mum, and because I was big lump doing my thing. But if somebody like me would have said to you, hey mate, said, look, there's a different way here, and somebody, I might not, okay. What's this person saying? I probably would have listened. I'm sure there's a certain age group where no one's listened to anybody, but I'm sure in my 20s and stuff, I would have had that. I think I missed that fucking mentor. And I definitely believe my career life, everything's just stagnated for about 10 years. And then I've kicked again. To the point we said at the weekend, would I have changed anything? Now, probably not, because I'm here, but then I would have. And I just don't think there's so much. I think there's so many simple tricks, there's so many simple wins that people don't need to go through all of the fucking pain, all of the war wounds we've got on our back. And that's the thing that I think. And I think because I think technology has fucked everything, especially the up and coming kids now. I joke about it all the time. The attention span I can see in kids now is next level. They're on the phone and they look up at you. Even when they look up at you, they're glazed because they're thinking about that next thing and they can't digest information. And I think it's getting worse and worse and worse. So I think now we do need to help. And I think we need to help in mass. I think everybody needs to understand what the fuck's going on. It's not good. 15-year-olds and up are killing themselves. The highest rate of death is suicide. I say it all the time. Fucking suicide. Not fucking, not falling off a cliff. Not a disease. They're taking their own life. It's fucking getting worse. So I think en masse, we as a society need to shake things up, and there's loads of simple tricks that you can do, which can help. It's not going to solve fucking everything overnight, but I think it can have a massive impact. And going to what you say, I think people stepping up, reducing the mask, whom people might listen to, I think the impact can be fucking phenomenal.
I agree. Totally.
I can fucking ramble all day about that one. Okay. When you were younger, we talk about your authentic self, and I think men don't really, we've spoken about it. You joked that people don't even understand what vulnerability was. Did you understand when you were younger about even what, people say, you being your authentic self and stuff? Did you understand all that language when you were younger, when you were coming through?
Jesus. No, I don't think so. I think I had a feeling of what it meant, and I think we all kind of have that feeling because children are innocent, and I think it's only as we kind of get older that we kind of distort what that means, or but yeah, I don't know. What came to me there, man, is that like I had a conversation with an aunt of mine recently, and it was about me being spiritual, and she goes to me, Jack, you were always spiritual. I was like, was I? And she was like, yeah. And then it reminded me of like a time when I was really young and went out bollocked naked and just ran in the rain, no fear, no nothing. And I think that okay, you may not comprehend what it is, but that is acting out in a way that's authentic, right? So I think I may not have understood it, but I was acting it out. Yeah.
Yeah, good point. And yeah, I'm glad it's not raining in here. I don't want you running around here bollock naked.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? Later. The thing is, because we've touched about, there's so many men who don't understand all these words.
Yeah.
They don't understand the power of inner work. They don't understand what it means. So they're running around their fucking head, being the prisoner of their own mind the majority of their time, and don't realise the simple tricks you can do. I mean, one of the things that I always say to people, if you're running around your own head, and you've got all the, you might have 4 trains of thought running around your head. You've concluded them about 60 times. You always do the math. You'll kind of run around and you'll get to a solution and you'll realise it might be something from the past. You've behaved like a dickhead, or someone's behaved like a dickhead to you. And then you can kind of go, okay, well, that was in the past. This is what's happened. You run around your head, you kind of complete it. And you go, well, okay, is it in the past? Yeah, there's nothing more I can do. It's there. Okay. So you've punished yourself for hours, you complete the thing, you go to sleep, you wake up, you do it again. And I always say, well, fucking like anything. Okay, well, if that's, what 4 things you're running around your head? 1, 2, 3, write them down. What's the outcome? Okay, can you do anything? Have you learnt from it? Okay, just write down a big imaginary off button and just go, bang, off. You've wrote it, you've got the solution, okay? Just literally, it's like when you go to bed in the middle of the night and you fucking idea and you 2 a.m. in the morning. You write it in your phone, you can go to sleep. If you don't, I'm fucking up thinking about this thing.
Yeah.
There's something that gets it out of your head. And I go like, just press the off switch. And then anytime you think about it, you've actually got it there and go, I've done this equation. The result's there. I don't need to run around. Thank you. That's a simple trick. It fucking works.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And there's all of these things. And I just can't, and again, I just can't believe there's not something en masse help, really trying to go to society. It's dependent on charities and things that we're trying to do. And if you united everybody and done it fucking properly, I think the impact would be phenomenal. I think the impact on mental health, mental illness, on suicidality, it would be like drastically improve because there's so many simple tricks out there. And I believe we don't have to go, I always say, too deep, too fucking down the rabbit hole. There's simple things up here that's going to help. And then we can get to the next stages as we go on.
Can I just ask you on that? Yeah. So I think it's relevant to everything we've touched on. Like, that's your vision, right? Yeah, and it's much bigger than you. It's massive, and it's very admirable. But one of the, as healthy masculinity. We talk about balance, but a big part of it is purpose, vision, and working towards something. I'm curious to hear what would you say about that? Or I have flipped the tables here a little bit.
No, well, I have got a vision and a mission of effectively doing that. The app that we're creating is a simplified app that people can have their own tracking to understand where you sit. Just like I've asked you, and you've gone, fuck, yeah, no wonder. I was at my lowest and I scored 3. I'm now in a much stronger position. I've got a more solid base to protect myself. When life chucks those curveballs at me, it's duality. It's going to happen. You're going to have a lot of shit. But Jack has now got solid fundamentals. His health and fitness routine locked. His inner work locked. So when your pain comes, you've got safety nets. You can deal with things fucking stronger, right? When you're down there, you're fucking like this, and it's like you can you've been battered. You got the war wounds, like a lion on the savannah who's just had half his leg ripped off, and he's fucking struggling around. If he gets attacked by a pack of lions, he's gone. You know what I mean? You're kind of on. I always say it's kind of built on jelly if you haven't got these foundations. So number one, that's for the independent. That's for you, I, within the app. But what we want to do is create this kind of community that pushes people to connect outside of technology. So you have these ratings and we have like a community. So Jack comes on, I'm here, I've got me mates, and we've got our own little men's circle. We can connect on the outside world. It could be virtually, it could be, together. And then, so what it allows to do, any men's circles can connect through this app, which gives a view of everybody. And there's a simple kind of process of how we can do it. And it keeps a track of everybody. Fuck, my mate Jack's struggling. I'm going to reach out. Are you okay, brother? You know what I mean? So-and-so. and having it like a team score. It's almost like, as men, we want to win, right?
Yeah.
How are we going? Fuck, who's dropped our score off? Hey, what the fuck's wrong with you? However we connect, jokes aside,
Yeah.
is to keep that, continuing to improve. You can set your own, continue to set your own stuff. And I see something like this as the revolutionary thing that we need to do. I think it's simple. I think it can be done on scale. I think it can be done en masse. I'm doing it, so I know it works. I've been doing it with a collection of people, a small community. I've had some unbelievable results, and I'm looking at going, why hasn't it been done? So I want to give it a fucking go.
Yeah.
And as you said, my vision and mission is fucking, it's through the roof. If I don't hit through the roof, I'll hit the roof. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's going to have an impact. It's already having an impact. A guy from Melbourne rocked up and said he was going to kill himself and he didn't put his head in the noose.
Yes.
It's fucking doing stuff. Fucking great. So no matter where we land, we're winning.
Yes.
And there's a movement. And I always say, back to what you're saying, is fucking set your vision and your mission, through the roof. Shoot for the stars. Just keep going. And I always I've got my little board. It's in my little where to put my clothes on. It's next to where my shoes are. And I look at it every morning. And I've got like a 3-year thing. And I look at it every morning. It just enters my consciousness. And I always look at it and go, okay. And I just feel, and I usually hit 90% of them. I don't know if it's just subconscious. It's almost like I've got something in this, it might be quarter one, I'm going to achieve this. Quarter two, I'm going to achieve this. And sometimes they can be coming close to like the quarter. And I'm like, that thing hasn't happened. The next minute, like something will happen, and a connection will happen, and I go, "Oh, this is that thing."
Yeah.
Oh, all right, you know what I mean. I had some people reach out to me this week. That was it. Obviously, we've got good men helping good men. We're going to have good women helping good women as well. But that needs to be led by the feminine. It needs to be led by women. Same methodology, slightly different questions, different workbook, slightly different app, but completely similar methodology. And I was like, okay, I'm getting to the point now where our initial app's going to be launched. And I'm thinking, fuck, I'm looking at my little whiteboard going, we're going to start looking at that soon. And then this week I'm sitting at the beach talking to this lady, and she's kind of in this space, 25,000 followers, this, that, and the other. And she kind of mentioned, I thought, why is she talking to me now? Why is this happening now at this time? So I was like, so I think when something happens, I'm going, why is this happening? Okay, I'm going to continue this conversation. I don't know where it goes, but I'm going to continue this because this. Why is this? I always ask me, why is it happening? Why is someone entering my world? There's usually a reason. I think when you're aligned and you're moving with purpose, keep an eye out for who enters your world. If they're real and there's no mask and you look at them and they're authentic, I think they're coming in for a reason. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
And again, and I had somebody even reach out to me through the socials yesterday. Another women's group actually saying, can we get involved in something out of nowhere? And I looked at what they do and I'm like, perfect. Women's circles, breath work, meditate. I'm like, perfect. Let's speak. And it's come at the time when I literally looked the other day and go, when's this going to happen? And then ding, ding. So for me, I try and stay authentic, try and stay in flow. Don't try and force too much, because when I force, sometimes I get myself a bit almost flustered. I try and make it happen too quick. So what I realised is pull back a little bit. Keep your eyes open for who's real in your world and who pops up. And then, this person. Okay. And then I have that discussion, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I just like to echo something that you said without it being said, but like it's following your curiosity as well. Yeah. Like staying open. What's this about? I find that like basically that's how I'm here today. I saw Stephen walking, went up to him. I was curious and I just gave him a compliment and kept bumping into him. And he was like, oh, there's this friend, my friend Ian, I think it would be good for you to meet him. And I'm here today because I followed my curiosity. And I think it's a really valuable tool and skill to have, to follow, to stay open and follow your curiosity. Because like you said, all these people reaching out and everything else, you stay curious about it, things tend to happen.
Yeah, and you get a feel of if something's real, if someone's real, okay, there's something here. If there's a mask, I kind of go, I don't think you're for me. Things pop up and it's almost like it's a game, right? It's like fucking whack-a-mole or whatever. No, you're not for me, you're for me. Okay. how do we grow from here as a kind of as the movement? As I say, I'm feeling quite excited that I can feel the likes of yourself and all of a sudden, because only a couple of years ago I was thinking, how can I help? I know there's stuff here, but all of a sudden, I don't know if it's, as I say, come out of nowhere, but I've seen what you're doing. There's other people in the men's sex who are doing other things. How do you think we kind of, as a collective, how do you think we take this further? How do you see the immediate future for kind of men improving the position we are today?
That is a really good question. And for me, man, the big insight that I got, which we spoke about on the way over here, is the power of collaborating, And on my journey, particularly in the last year, I experienced a lot of doubt and sabotage and everything else. And call it frequency, call it vibes, whatever you want to call it. But it's very difficult for things to happen when you're in that headspace. So just using that as the opposite of what collaboration looks like. So that's informed by scarcity, by lack, and like a sense of competition. But what I've actually realized, and thank you so much for this, is by coming together, it's actually so much powerful when you collaborate and work with people and realize that we're stronger together. So I definitely think, and for me, that I'm actually seeing the evidence of that in action through what we've done together, and it's very early days, and just your whole mindset and your philosophy as well. So yeah, I think I think it goes without saying that collaboration is probably a very big component of that. Like philosophically, what else? Fuck, man, it's. I don't know, man. I'd say we need another 2 hours to cover that question. But I don't know, man. I agree with you. I think love has to be the way. That there's a lot of fear in the world. I think we have to lead from a place of love. Drop the judgment. Drop the gossip and all that other stuff that's really toxic for us. And lead by example, man. We have to be role models. We have to look after our own ships first before we try to go attending to look after our own houses. Ships. Look after our own fucking houses first before we go attending to other people's stuff, So again, we have to be willing and prepared to do the work on ourselves, heal. Essentially that's what this is, man. It's collective healing,
100%. I've said it. You touched on one there about gossip and stuff like that, and obviously I preached it about it at the weekend, saying the 4 agreements, get this fucking 4 agreements down, yeah. And I think that gossip, they say within that, I think that within the Toltec tradition, that's poison. It's the poison of the mind, and it's like everybody's passing poison. The gossip, half the gossip is just assumptions. It's bullshit. It doesn't fucking mean. And it's like everybody kind of gets. It's like one of the lowest forms of things you can do as a human. People do it every day. It's part of what we do. It's in our nature. And it's even even you and I talking before. We can get into a little bit of a conversation. And go, am I in this boundary again? Am I doing this thing? And then you got to. Both of us were quickly trying to pull ourselves back out.
Yeah,
do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because it happens. And I think the key is their non-judgment. I think because people throw a lot of hate around, and something that I've been confronted with recently, watching certain things and behaviours, and I'm like, okay, that's them. They've clearly been programmed differently than me. Different parts of a journey. Mm-hmm. They may look at me in a certain way, right? I'm not going to try and cast judgment, but I think I need a boundary around it.
Yeah.
I think I don't need to see, feel, hear that at the moment,
mm-hmm.
In whichever way. So I think sometimes just give yourself a boundary so you don't, because you can get sucked into, the more you get battered with something, you can get sucked into judgments,
mm-hmm.
and give yourself a bit of space to then do that. Because I think that judgment is massive, that you touched on, judgment and gossiping about people.
Yes.
It's a real low vibration. And to touch on that love and abundance, and just like we had at the weekend, I think that Bodhi described a lot of things really well to us.
Yes.
The guy at your he blew my mind with his little walk through
Insights.
Yeah, that was amazing. And again, as he was talking, I was thinking that was such high frequency conversation. The way he was talking about love, not judgment. We are all a mirror and all this type of stuff. And I was thinking, fucking hell. And it connected with everybody.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And we're all different walks of life and stuff. And I'm thinking more stuff like that needs to be said. And that'll keep that love frequency.
What you were saying there about the whole judgment thing as well, like as I said at the weekend, we are going to slip up because we're human. So it's being able to be compassionate with ourselves when we do. But for me, man, something that's really helped me, again, speaking to the person who is early in their journey and they're trying to create a new life for themselves and they're walking away from what's comfortable. What I see happening a lot, man, with men is they feel guilty for wanting something better for themselves because they think, they're going to think now that I think I'm better than them or whatever it may be. But for me personally, what has helped a lot as it pertains to putting that boundary up that you're talking about is detach with love. Like there's people in my life who I was very close to years ago, and basically I've kind of realised, and a lot of it actually was gossip and stuff like that. I wasn't really about it anymore, man. But I still love that person. I'm still grateful to them because they helped me at a time when it was really important. But I'm just not. I'm not. I've detached with love. For me, it's really helped me, man. Just detach with love, because it's okay to. It doesn't have to be this big fucking, argy-bargy. It can just be, you can just gradually go in your own direction. And it's just part of life too, man, especially when it comes to friendships. People grow apart and grow different. You don't need to feel guilty if you want something better, it's about self-respect.
It's the evolution, mate, isn't it? It's evolution. People that grow with you don't grow with you and you change. So just to close it out, what advice would you give to any young men coming through the ranks now? Anyone who's either struggling or wants to better themselves, what would be your primary bit of advice? Because obviously there's so much we could talk about, but if you could say one thing, what would it be?
Fuck, man.
Even to a younger Jack.
Yeah, I just think just be true to yourself. That's the shortest answer I can give. Just be true to yourself, Yeah,
I think, as we're saying all the way through, whichever way you call it, drop the mask, be vulnerable, be courageous, all of these things. Be true to yourself, your authentic self. It's just you. Reveal you. Reveal you. And if somebody wants to be around you, they're fucking great. Let's get more of that. If they don't and they be a fucker, fuck them off. You know what I mean? And that, in a nutshell, that's going to get you on your path for who you are, right? Yes. So I think that's a good way to wrap it up. Be your authentic self. All right. Well, look, I'm sure we could chat all day and we'll chat some more when we finish. But I really appreciate you. Good to see our blossoming friendship continue. And hopefully I don't wake up in the morning, you're next to me bed. All right, mate.
Thank you very much.
Cheers, buddy.
Cheers, mate.
Thank you.